Levels are a thing of the past in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's all about power now. There are some interesting changes coming to the game, and in this video I want to look at what I think it means and actually a rumor we had before launch that gives us a better idea of how this structure might work. And that actually freedom seems to be very important. There's also an awesome online feature, we look at some of the abilities we can unlock and way more. So as always, a like on the video would be super appreciated. And let's go. A quick reminder that you can participate in my May giveaway for a 2020 game of your choice on your platform of choice, and you can choose Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Just follow the link in the pinned comment and be sure you are a subscriber of the channel before you enter, and I will announce the winner in early June. One of the biggest critiques of Odyssey, and actually Origins in some regard as well, was level gated content. You might remember that point in Odyssey where the next main story mission required you to be 5 levels higher than you were at that point, so then you had to do side missions or other side content like conquest battles to rank up. And in Origins you could easily run into an area with skull enemies that would then easily kill you. Well, in Valhalla this should not be an issue from the sounds of it. Levels are namely gone in this game, and now it's more about power, and this power is based on the skills you have unlocked. Overall, the skill tree will be familiar, although it will look different compared to Origins and Odyssey from the sounds of it, but we should still be able to unlock the abilities and skills that suit our playstyle. If you want to be more an aggressive Viking and throw your axe to the enemy as we saw in the trailer, well, that is an ability that you can unlock. But there should also be stealth abilities that should have an authenticity and credibility to the time period. So sounds like we should expect less of the magical abilities that we saw in Odyssey, where with Rush Assassinate you could just teleport to different enemies. Overall, combining skills should also be very important, and it should also go hand in hand with the new dual wield system that lets you dual wield every weapon in the game, including shields. And in a press start interview we have Ashraf say that there's an ability at some point where you can call in a wolf to come and help you. And that sounds awesome, kind of like the Atlantis ability maybe, where you summon an assassin on a target. Obviously this will be less over the top. And there will also be other journeys in the game that will more or less involve other animals, so it's a different take, but yes, animals have a space within the journey. And as we discussed in a recent video, we actually can ride a dire wolf, as we saw in the Ultimate Edition shot, but we also saw this bear already that we will likely be able to encounter in the wild as well, but in this example it is part of the Way of the Berserker pre-order mission, where we have to help a Viking with his revenge and likely meet his bear companion as well. No word if similar animal taming will be back, as we of course saw in the previous games, but it makes sense that animals will play at least a big role in this game somehow. I mean, Ubisoft already mentioned that hunting is one of the activities that we can do, and this might be way more fleshed out than we saw before, and could also be a big part of the enormous push for freedom in this game. Our goal is to just let players play the content they want, so players want to focus on narrative, there's no issue there. People want to focus on their settlement, again, no issue there. It's really up to the players to decide how they want to consume the content. And this sounds great first of all, and totally seems to eliminate some of the issues that we talked about earlier in the video. Before the reveal, we talked about a big video from Luke Stevens that I will link to in the video description. So he already discussed actually a feature where if you just want to hunt, fish or gather, then you can still reach the same endpoint of the game as someone who just wants to follow the story. So while we still don't have a ton of details on how this will work in the game, this does sound like something that is indeed in Valhalla. He also said that there would not be any real naval combat, but just exploration with our ship. And this, of course, if you think about it, totally makes sense for the time period. But yeah, this is the case. We will use our longship to just quickly go from place to place, and also use it as an escape after we, for example, raided a village. So yes, you have these raids out in the world that we also quickly saw in the trailer, and then you also have big assaults. So massive battles on huge battlefields or on fortifications. and those are linked to narrative moments in the game. And I asked Ashraf Ismail during my interview if these battles would be replayable, but he could not say yet as they wanted to talk about replayable content closer to the release. But rumors have always suggested that there would also be some sort of defending forts in the game as well, and that is something that Luke said too. So maybe we will hear more about that a little later, but that could totally be their version of ongoing content like conquest battles that we saw in Odyssey. Another big part that Luke talked about was the improved parkour, and I've seen a lot of questions about this and we really don't have any concrete info on it yet, but what Luke suggested was that we should be able to move through trees more freely, and kind of like what we saw in Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag after that. So maybe during the gameplay reveal on May 7th that I will again live react to on Twitch. So check out my Twitch channel in the pinned comments. Maybe they will shine more light on how we can traverse the world. And another thing that Luke talked about is this crew system where we can customize our characters. Well, that is indeed true. Like, this is in Valhalla. We can customize our own mercenaries or raiders. And this is also an online component. So no, the game will not feature any co-op. We discussed this before the reveal as well. There were some rumblings about it, but it's not in this game. I again made the prediction that I think the next game after this one will be like true next gen and likely feature more multiplayer components. But what we got in this game already sounds pretty cool as well, because you can namely create and customize your own Viking mercenary and then share them online with other people. Okay, so let's say I make the Hades Lieutenant as a mercenary. Fingers crossed that that is possible. Then you can go online and recruit this mercenary, then take him to your version of the world, and then go on raids, and I will get some sort of reward because you used my mercenary. This sounds awesome. And there should be more online components, as Ubisoft already teased. I of course cannot wait to see Sargon's return in this game. Kidding of course, but I am curious to see their take in this game on that system where you can of course get special items by doing daily and weekly missions. But yeah, overall it's of course a single player game like the previous entries, and enemy variety is another thing they're really trying to push. I already talked quickly about this in my previous video. So what they for example want is that after 20 hours you can still encounter enemies that you haven't seen before. But now we actually learned, thanks to Catsy Green on Reddit, that there will be more than 25 different enemy types, and that is more than we've seen in other AC games. But these enemies should also flank us and use different skills and the terrain, or actually seem to have some sort of connection as well. In the trailer we saw this big enemy called the Ringleader that, according to Ashraf in the trailer breakdown, should be able to rally troops on the battlefield. Where in Odyssey, for example, all the enemies were in groups but not really working together, we should see more of that in this game. And as we saw in the trailer, this Ringleader is super armored, and what Ashraf actually noted is that it should have very few available weak points. And then he said that this is hinting at what is to come.
Very few available weak points. So that's a little hint as to what's to come.
So yes, weak points of an enemy could actually be a big part of this game. We see Eivor in the trailer use the sword on the legs, so maybe that is the weak point of this particular enemy. And maybe that will be the case for other enemies as well, that we can focus on specific parts of their armor that have less protection. We see body parts fly in the trailer. Dismemberment should be possible in the game too. So curious how the combat will evolve compared to Origins and Odyssey, but we will likely see that during the gameplay reveal again on May 7th. And I hope we then also get a better idea of what the progression system will really be about. By the way, if you have any questions about the game, and I can imagine that you have, drop them down in the comments, because I want to do my best to try and answer them with all the info that is out there so far, and then do a big video on that. So if you want your question featured and answered, then drop it down. Again, there's not a ton known about the game so far, but maybe I will be able to answer some of your burning questions. And I want to do that in a future video. The big Sunday video, so the video after this one, will go in depth on the release date and also what it means for Watch Dogs Legion that still wants to launch this year. A ton of things point in a very obvious direction. It's gonna be an interesting one, so subscribe to stay up to date on that. And just on everything regarding Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I will keep you up to date here on the channel. A like would be super appreciated. And don't check out my previous video on the different editions and what they tell us about the game. Some pretty interesting stuff, if I say so myself. So check it out if you haven't already. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.